Welcome back to the Wealth Easy Show, where we talk all things wealth, health, and real estate. Today, folks, I've got a real special treat for you. We're going to be discussing what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And to help with this discussion is a man who has scaled his tanning salon business from one location to 70 locations and on his way to 250 locations. This man has amassed a real estate portfolio, both residential and commercial properties. Please welcome to the show the CEO of 𝙭tanning, Onyi Odunukwe. Welcome, buddy.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, thank you for having on. Because I've been following your content for a while now, and I reached out and I said, listen, I love your stuff. I love the fact that, you know, you're an entrepreneur like myself. You're in the real estate game like myself, and that's what this show is about. And I reached out to you, and you responded really quickly. So thank you for responding and getting on the show. So this is going to be great. I think this is going to be a really great conversation for our listeners today.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, give us a 2-minute bio about yourself.
Yeah. So started 𝙭when I was 21. I just turned 36, and started it, on a whim. It wasn't, there wasn't no reason to per se open a tanning salon, and just kind of tried it out. Got a mentor, probably about 3-4 years in, which definitely helped, and scaled it up from there. Actually had an exit, a multi-7-figure exit, 2018, and was going to go do, something else. And then, just kind of figured, hey, I'm already good at this, so I'll go somewhere outside of my non-compete, which was in the state of Arkansas, and went to Oklahoma and kind of just expanded the brand. And then we're getting right back in Arkansas now because it's past our 5-year non-compete window. So it's really kind of it. And then probably about a little over 3 years ago, started purchasing the real estate that we're in. So buying, the buildings, that we occupy. So also becoming the landlord.
That's awesome. That's kind of like the McDonald's model, right? I mean, they're not a burger company. They're a real estate company.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's kind of the exact same thing. So up to, I have 500 contracts so far this year. So that would put me at 21.
That's amazing. Now you're located in Dallas, right? Did 𝙭tanning started in Dallas?
No, I started in Fayetteville, Arkansas. So I went to University of Arkansas, so started in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and then moved to Dallas about 3.5 years ago.
How do you feel about the Cowboys this year?
Not a Cowboys fan.
Oh, you're not?
No, I'm not anti-Cowboys either, but I'm just not a Cowboys fan. But I expected them to do what they did. That makes any sense.
Who's your NFL team?
I was born in Boston, so I was always a Patriots fan. But then I have a couple houses in Tampa, and Brady went down there, so we got a box down there. So kind of a mix between Tampa and New England.
Okay, I'm a big Steelers fan. So
yeah, I like the Steelers too. I kind of like the owner. I like the coach. So yeah, I like.
So I had a home in Sarasota for several years, from 2009 to 2016, and 15. Sold it in 15. So I was at the Super Bowl in Tampa when they played Arizona.
2021.
No, 2009. 2009.
Okay,
2009
Steelers.
Steelers in Arizona. So yeah, I was there, and it was quite the experience. Is funny because I never got a chance to actually get inside. My buddy and I, we went down really early because it's only an hour drive from Sarasota to Tampa.
Yeah.
We got there really early, and we decided, you know what, prices were really high at that time. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we're trying to get, spend maybe $1,500 on a ticket, and they were starting around $2,500. We thought, we'll come back around 5 o'clock, and they'll probably have dropped. We ended up finding a right across the street from Raymond James Stadium, this tent, and we just got completely shit-faced in there by 5 o'clock, and we're like, this is the best place. It was $20 back then, all you can drink. And we had screens everywhere. The place was filling up. We're like, we're in the best location. Let's just stay here. And we had the greatest time with everybody right across from the stadium and they won. So that was my experience at the Super Bowl in 2009 with the Steelers. Yeah. So you're on your Instagram. You're known as the Sweatpant Millionaire. How did you come up with that name?
My name, initially on there was Mr. Arkansas. Used to be a bodybuilder, so I was
Yeah.
Mr. Arkansas bodybuilding champ for a couple of years, and then I was, moving to Dallas. So I was like, it's a little confusing. I'm not in Arkansas anymore. So one of my friends was like, I go to every meeting I go to. I'm pretty dressed down, like sweatpants, t-shirt. I don't dress up for anybody, I dress up for you guys a little bit. For the most part, I don't, because I kind of looked at it and said, okay, every meeting that back in the day, I had to get, um, appearances matter, in the sense of, it's a young black kid trying to rent this spot. Will we let him? I had to get a cosign from, not an actual cosign, but people had to, like, they'll call some money, say he's a good guy, whatever. So after, a couple of years, and once I had a semblance of success, I said, fuck that. I'm not dressing up for anybody. I'm coming
Mhm.
as I am. And, so because I was always like in sweatpants, and, I used to work out all the time, whatever, then that was how kind of how the name came about.
That's cool. That's awesome. I did some bodybuilding. I train. I've been training now for 35 years. I'm 52, so I started when I was 15 years old, and I did my first show when I was 23, and then I did my second one. I got my ass whooped, and then I went back on stage when I was 28, and then I went right to about 31. So here in Canada, we have provinces. You guys have states. So I ended up going to level 3, which was the provincials, and ended up tearing my shoulder up and
Oh, wow.
didn't bother competing. And that was my bodybuilding stint. So right up until about 31, I competed, and now I just train just to stay
Just
in shape.
yeah. No, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Makes sense.
So you became an entrepreneur at a really young age, and I love the story that you were telling on another podcast. I heard you on the Hard Knocks podcast, and you were telling a story how you were selling candy bars at the school. So you got a taste of entrepreneurship at a really young age. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so, it was back in the day, the dollar store used to be like three full-size candy bars for $1, right? This is, 2001, so I was like 13, 14, and, so me and my brother, we went to the store, and we started off with, like, $1 each, and bought, 6 candy bars, or 5 candy bars after taxes, and took it to school, sold it for $1 a piece. Kids were using their lunch money, took those 5, flipped it into 15, 15 to 45, and until we were up to, almost $1,000. And then we got caught. They suspended us, took the money, made us, give it back to all the kids or whatever. So yeah, so I've always kind of been a hustler from day one.
They should have not suspended you and got you to teach a course on becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah, you know how it was back in the day. I mean, now I feel like awareness, obviously with podcasts like this, awareness is, for entrepreneurship and stuff like that, is a lot larger. But we've always been, uh, big on just following a regimented system, school, and the way you kind of do it. And we're realizing that, that's just not how you create real wealth. Like, nobody created real wealth from going to school. The best you could probably do is be a high shot lawyer, or, a really good doctor, right?
Well,
Out,
you come from a family of doctors, right? Your father's a
yeah,
surgeon, your mom's a psychologist.
yep. So, and for me, I finished college in 15 years late, and so probably about 3 years ago, just for my mom to get the degree.
Mhm.
And but my extended family is all super educated. Everybody's a doctor, lawyer, engineer. My sister's a lawyer. And out of all of them, I make the most money, and I'm the least educated out of the bunch. So, we know that school teaches you how to be a good employee, basically.
Elon Musk didn't go to college. He
Yeah.
dropped out, right?
Yep.
Richest man on the planet.
Yep. I
Uh,
think Bill Gates did too.
yeah,
Um,
Bill Gates dropped
Bill
out.
Bill Gates, yeah, every Mark Zuckerberg did, and all these guys are super smart, and they went to, they dropped out of Harvard, right? So these guys were extremely smart, but those places don't curate, Great
Hey
ideas.
everyone, it's John. I just wanted to thank you for being here, and I would ask that you please subscribe to the show by just clicking the subscribe button right here. I'd really appreciate it. It helps grow the show so we can get even more successful guests on the program to help you. If you're already subscribed, a huge thank you. When you subscribe, you're going to get access to the program before anybody else does. So if you would, just click subscribe right here. Thanks so much, and welcome back to the Wealth Easy Show. You know who Dan Bilzerian is?
Yes.
So I heard him on a show. He said that he dropped out of college. I mean, the guy's worth like, I think, 250 to 300 million bucks. And one day the professor was giving him shit for something, and he just stood up. He said, "How much did you make last year?" And he told him, he goes, "Motherfucker, I just made that last night in a poker game." He goes, "And you're trying to teach me? Get the fuck out of here." And the guy walked out and he dropped out, and that was it. Right. And he goes on. Now he's worth like $300 million.
Yeah. What benefit for my kids? I'm going to encourage them to go to school. I'm also encouraging them to go to college, but that's more for the social aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then also there's always it's always good to have a good baseline of knowledge in general. But thinking that your school is going to be the reason why you make money is just not the case.
No,
So
you're 100% correct. And I find that the school system, they teach you just enough to become a servant for the system.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. You know, my son, he wants to become a doctor. He wants to be a plastic surgeon. I'm like, okay, well, you got to go to school for that. Right. I could teach you about real estate. I could teach you about money, how to create wealth. But if this is what you want to do, you want to help people, I can't teach that to you. You need to go to school.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in addition to that, I just had a podcast with Deepak, who's like the number one rhinoplasty surgeon in probably the world, based out of LA. And he's really, I mean, he's an amazing, he's a non-scar, so he does rhinoplasties through the inside rather than ripping, going up and doing it. And I mean, he probably makes, I don't know, 20 plus million a year. And in Beverly, his office is in Beverly Hills, but he's an entrepreneur more than anything else. So I mean, he masters craft first, but then now he's an entrepreneur because he has to focus on marketing. Himself. He has to, he's on all those like shows, botched, and all those shows, which obviously that has nothing to do with his skill set, but that's to do with his marketing, right?
Yeah.
And then now he's also investing in other doctors, and basically helping them set up practice. So he's scaling something that's unscalable, which, for a doctor, you can only make as much as your time allows you to make because you have to be physically doing the work, right? So, so for your son, there is also an aspect of entrepreneurship in it, especially in plastic surgery, because plastic surgery is an elective surgery. So my dad's a surgeon, but he's a general vascular surgeon. So he's the surgeon that you go into, blood vessel pops, or you got to get something happens with your appendix, or stuff like that. So he's just getting fed cases by the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to with plastic surgery, the hospital's never going to feed you any cases unless somebody has like severe burns or something like that. So you have to be an entrepreneur to be a plastic surgeon.
How did the experience as a young person selling these chocolate bars, how did that experience change your mindset to not ever wanting to work for somebody?
So my parents did a really, really good job in raising us. At the time, we probably, because my sister's an entrepreneur as well, she owns a law firm. And then my brother owns a bunch of real estate and owns a couple of businesses, but neither one of my parents are really entrepreneurs. So I mean, my dad had his own practice, so he's kind of an entrepreneur in a sense, but I wouldn't, I wouldn't list him as an entrepreneur, but he does have an entrepreneurial mindset in a sense. But I think what they did was, obviously when you grow up and you have um, people that are around you that are going to be like, my parents' friends, and their friends are doctors, and then you have the doctors' kids, and they're driving a Mercedes at 16 and all that. We had none of that. So my first car was almost 15 years old. Those are the so for us, we were around wealth without actually experiencing that wealth. And my parents are very humble. So, my dad, I bought him a new 7 Series, which is his dream car, a couple years ago for his birthday. And until then, he was driving a Toyota Camry. And this is a guy that, made, $500,000 a year for 20 years, right? So he gave away half of his money every single year, sending it back to Nigeria and, paying people schools fees and, doing stuff like that. So, for them, the way that we lived, it's like, you saw wealth without touching it. So therefore, even as a kid, I wanted those things. I wanted the nice clothes. I wanted, a nice car and all that stuff. So that kind of drove us to hustle, which is obviously the reason why, the experience with the candy bars and stuff like that. But in addition to that, I wasn't a bad kid, but I wasn't a good kid. Like I got in trouble, but I didn't get in trouble for things that if we if we talked about it now, it would be like, oh, you were a hooligan or or a thug or anything like that.
Mm.
But it was just like I just had a problem with following, authority. So, um,
I think most
so
entrepreneurs do.
yeah, exactly. So it's like, that more than anything else is probably what makes it to where I would be a bad employee.
Mhm.
I never interviewed for a job that I didn't get, but I've been fired probably 7 times. Back when, I started working when I was 13, and obviously became an entrepreneur at 21. So, I had a good amount of job experience, and I've been fired from, almost 80% of the jobs I ever had. So, and, so yeah, so that's kind of, I guess that's kind of the entrepreneur mindset or experience, and like you said, a lot of entrepreneurs just are not good employees, right?
Yeah, I got my sales training when I was about 9 years old. I used to sell chocolate bars too. I was a shit disturber. I think most kids, between the ages of 8 and 11 or 12, they want to have fun and they're a bit of a shit disturber. And I didn't. I definitely did not come from the Lucky Sperm Club, and we grew up extremely poor. My father walked out when I was 8 years old. My mom had 4 kids, the youngest being 1, and I was 8. And he left, and we were left kind of just to fend for ourselves. And I ended up meeting this older man at a grocery store, and he says, "Hey, do you want to work for me after school, selling chocolate bars?" And what he would do is Costco like wasn't background then, but you had these wholesale grocery stores where you could go and you can buy these large candy bars. And I used to sell them for $2, and I used to make 50 cents a chocolate bar. Now we're going back to 1980, and so I don't even think you were born then, 1980, right? 36. And I learned how to have a sales pitch and be convincing from at the age of 9. I used to go after school along the retail stores, and then I would hit some homes afterward and probably work till like 8 o'clock at night. But back then, it kept me out of trouble. I was in a pretty rough neighborhood. And B, it put some cash in my pocket. So I used to make 70, $80 every week. And back at, being 9 years old, that was good money, but it taught me how to develop my skills so that later in life I would definitely use these skills in whatever do you have to be able to, whatever you are doing as an entrepreneur, you have to be able to sell something, right?
Absolutely. Doesn't matter even if you're not an entrepreneur, right? I tell my staff this all the time. The skill set that I teach them, which is sales more than anything else, is a skill set that you're going to need in life, regardless of what you do. So if you're a lawyer, you have to sell to a jury. When you want to get married, you have to sell yourself to your husband or your wife. When you go to a job interview, you have to sell yourself. So it doesn't matter what you do in life. Sales is by far the most important skill that you have to learn.
Absolutely. Tell us how did you come about getting into the tanning salon business? Like, where did the first location start? And now you've got 70, and I heard you said your goal is to have 250. Tell us, where did the first one start from?
Yeah, so we want 250 in the next 4 years. Our goal
It's
is not
amazing.
250 yet, but so first one was Fayetteville, Arkansas. So I went to University of Arkansas. So first one's right across the street from Arkansas, from the University of Arkansas. And I'm actually flying out in 30 minutes to go and close on a building today. in
Oh,
Fayetteville.
congratulations.
Appreciate it. That's literally zero point 0.2 miles from my original location.
Mm.
My original location I sold in that buyout 5.5 years ago. So going to buy the building and open back up. But yes, I mean it was just really a very one of my friends, he was in Tokyo with me, and he asked about the same. He said basically the same question. I said, if I had to go do it again, like I didn't have any of this, having the knowledge that I have right now, and I did not know the success that would come from it, I would not do it. Um, so sometimes things just happen almost like in a vacuum without thought. Uh, it was more because the question he asked was, how'd your parents feel? And I was like, they obviously didn't support it. And back like 2 weeks after I signed the lease, Anderson Cooper on CNN had a special about tanning and skin cancer and all the stuff. And that was really big. This is back when everybody watched the news and we didn't have all these different forms of streaming and all that stuff. So this is 2009. And my dad called me, and one of my best friends is now like a big time corporate lawyer. And they were like, hey, I don't think this is a good idea. Um, my reasoning for doing it was really more of a immature naivete where you kind of just like feel like, at a certain age, you just feel like, oh, you feel invincible, you feel like everything's going to work. And if it doesn't work, who cares? Right. That wasn't, I never had a thought process where it's not going to work. But if you look back at it, it's like, okay, you're 21 years old. Let's say you do it till you're 23, it fails. Who cares? Right.
Hmm.
Most
Yep.
kids at 20, 23 are just, jacking off and doing nothing.
Yep.
Right. So it's one of those things where, it was just more of an immaturity, and a sense of like maybe almost like a cockiness where it's like, oh, I'll figure it out, with zero experience to having anything in the industry.
There's thousands of tanning salons. What makes Glow Tanning stand out against all the other ones? I mean, I heard you say you don't like that palm tree entrance and stuff. Like you want to make it like a really classy, like spa like. So what are you doing that makes your salon stand out against other ones?
So we are a really more of a sun spa than we are a tanning salon, but tanning is in our name, and then
Mm-hmm.
tanning is also where we originally started. So probably about 8 years ago, we got into spa services. Our
Mm-hmm.
spa services are huge, so it's automated spa services, and we actually have just as many people who use spa services, and then we also have spray tanning, which is becoming really big for most people, especially people who do not want any UV tanning.
Mm-hmm.
So we really look at ourselves more like a sun spa, but like what things that we offer. So we all more than anything else, we offer light therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So light therapy is UV light, which is tanning. We have blue light therapy, which is helps with skin imperfections,
Mm-hmm.
acne. That we also have red light therapy, which was discovered by NASA, which helps with fine lines, wrinkles, stretch marks, acne, also any skin imperfections, as well as um, things inside your body, like your bones and density and structure. So NASA used red light therapy for the astronauts when they got back, because they were in that environment, and it kind of hurt their muscles
Mm-hmm.
to where a lot of muscle atrophy. So red light therapy, they realized that red light therapy helped with these things. So we have doctors that send people to us for psoriasis and different things. So we're really really big on light therapy, as well as the spa services, and then obviously spray tanning is just more cosmetic, and UV tanning, for the most part is cosmetic, but in certain areas, like if you're up in Washington State and stuff like that, you're even doing that just for your mood because there's not as much sunlight in
Mm-hmm.
those areas. In Tokyo, I noticed everybody there, and it's really more colonial um, thinking, and it's colonial thinking around the world. I'm Nigerian by heritage, and I go there a lot. I was just there a couple weeks ago, but it doesn't matter if you're in a black country, you're in, Asia, in South America, because of the um, history of colonialism, where you know white European countries came and took over whatever. Um, White is better in all societies. So if you look at, like in India, the lighter you are, the higher you are in the caste system, right? The darker you are, the worse you are. Mexicans, the same thing. Um, if you're darker, one is you want to be as close to white as possible, but two is if you're darker, means that you're poor because you're in the sun. You're a laborer, right? You're picking vegetables in the sun, so you're dark. So the lighter you are, the better that you are. So in Tokyo, all their advertisements, pretty much the people look white, right? Um, and it's not that they're racist, because honestly, Tokyo is one of my favorite cities, and the people just mind their business. So they don't nobody's staring at you, nobody's looking at you. Even when you're one out of 1,000, or one out of like probably 10,000 black people there, nobody's paying any attention, nobody's bothering, everybody's nice. So it's not really that. It's just that, it's more like ingrained after, 500 years of that mindset and thinking. But my point of saying all that was, there's almost no sun, and Tokyo's literally straight sky rises. So the sun's shining, but the sun can't shine through the buildings. So when you're walking the streets, for you to see the sun, you have to look up, but the sun never almost hits you. So everybody's pale. No one looks happy. Like, it's not that people are sad, but no one is smiling.
Yeah.
No one's laughing. It's a very serious society, right?
Yeah.
And they have a crazy amount of suicides. And then if you look,
Interesting.
yeah, they have crazy amount of suicides. And then if you
UK has a high suicide rate too because it's very gloomy all the time there.
Yes. So my mom was born in London. I'm a British citizen as well, and half my family lives over there, and I go to the UK a lot.
Yeah.
And if when you go to the UK, it rains every 2 hours for like 5 minutes and then stops, but it's very gloomy. There's just like that. If we go within the states, Washington State has the highest suicide rate per capita. Same exact thing. There's barely the sun only shines for, I don't know, it's like 60 days a year, something like that, right? So my point of saying all that, right, the long-winded thing is that light therapy would help. That's the society in Japan would help, in Washington State, and a lot of people in Washington State actually do use it for as like an antidepressant. But and after COVID, we had a lot of really bad press on tanning for probably about 20 years. From COVID, we've had a lot of really good press,
Mm.
because people, you know, Trump at one point was talking about UV lights or whatever, and then people were realizing that vitamin D deficiency was huge and was part of, you know,
A lot of
um,
the sicknesses.
yes, and their lack of an immune system.
Yeah.
So because of that, we've actually had an uptick,
Mhm.
um, because we've had 20 years of losing customers and all these, under 18 bans and all that. So people started tanning when they're 14, 15, 16 years old, and then they just continue it on. So that the age of our average customers continue to go up. Because if you didn't tan when you were younger, what would make you start tanning at 30,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that was a concerted effort, by the people in power to kind of, get phase out tanning, but we're realizing that, um, UV lights and what we're selling is the same thing that you get when you walk outside. The only difference is that it's regulated compared to unregulated. It's almost like, would you rather drink water out of a stream or out of a bottle?
Mhm.
You
I
know,
think I think the technology, even with the beds, I go back to when I used to compete, and I was tanning probably every other day to get that base because before you step on stage, you gotta put the dark cream in because the darker you are on stage with the lights, the more your muscles shadow and you look tighter and more fuller. And I was constantly tanning. And I remember beds going, gosh, we're going back 30 years ago, and some of these beds, man, they were not the best thing for your skin. So
absolutely. They were figuring it out. I mean, tanning was just invented in the 80s. So a guy named Dr. Wolf, And I mean, he just died like a year ago, maybe. So I mean, that's how new the technology is in a sense. Um, so that's that's kind of we've been it's the technology because all of our beds are made in Germany, and the technology and where we're going with these beds are amazing. The issue is that previously the beds were like almost like a wood structure with UV lights, in it, and it's constantly progressed. But what it was before was not very good for the skin. So we're basing all of our research and science and our conclusions based off of what it was 20 years ago, not what it is today. And what it is today is actually good for you compared to bad because people just don't get as much sunlight as they should. It's different if you live in Florida, you don't really need to go tanning, right? If you live in Canada, you probably do. You
Oh
live in
God,
a city.
it's fucking gray every day. Like my wife, we had to take off. We went to the Dominican for 10 days, and as soon as my wife gets off the plane, she's like, my mood has changed. The moment we come back into Canada, it's like we've been back. We got back on Saturday night, and it's been fucking gray every day. And it's like my wife goes, "Can we just leave? Can we just get on a plane and go back someplace? Like I need some sun." It's just it even just alters your mood. It could be minus 10 degrees Celsius, which would be minus 20, like 12 degrees Fahrenheit. As long as it's sunny though, it's like your whole mood shifts.
Yep,
Right?
yep, yep, yep. So and
It's
that's
so
it.
important to get those UV rays and the sun.
Absolutely.
So with all these, you have currently over 70 locations. How do you find good people to run your locations?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So, I believe in a bottom up approach compared to a top down. So we just get people that, and also bottom up. I mean, as an entrepreneur or as a business owner, a bottom up is always going to be cheaper too. So it's getting people that are on a lower level and basically training and scaling them up to leadership
Mhm.
compared to trying to seek out leadership. Because if you seek out leadership, you have to find people with experience. People with experience cost more money rather than you being the person that's helping train them. But in addition to that, typically people have management experience, always want to bring that experience and say, well, my last job, we did this. Well, for me, I don't give a fuck what you did at your last job. This isn't your last job. So for us, it's more like, we train you on what we expect of a leader, what we expect of an employee. And on top of that, if you get to, let's say, the pinnacle of leadership in our company, which would be going from you know, a consultant to a senior consultant to an assistant manager, a manager, an area leader, area manager, and then a DL. That's 6 positions. So, you know, for you to get to a DL, in my opinion, you have to have had worked all 6 of those positions so you can understand what the expectation is in every level. So I strongly believe in that, and that's really how we find it. And then from a DL, you can move up to ownership. We have a program called, the Own Your Future program, where we link investors. We probably have about, well, it's not probably, we do have over 1,000 applications a year for people who want a franchise. Last year only approved 5. This year I'm approved 15. And really, the reason why we don't approve people, the 2 reasons why is number one, they don't have an operator and they think that it's going to be a passive investment when it's not. And then number two is a lack of funds. But the number one is the more important because somebody has a net worth of $2 million in liquid cash of a half a million, they can open a store. And we're SBA approved franchise, so we've never been denied financing, for a store. So we can get anybody a store if they make over 100 grand a year. But the question is, if we get them a store, who's going to operate it? And they're going to want to keep their day job, and they say, "Oh, I'll just hire somebody." And it's just like we're not. It's not that easy. It could be that easy if we were some of these other franchises, but we have a very very high level of expectation when it comes to how our stores are run, and to keep that brand integrity. we're big on the operation. We're not looking for somebody just coming and just open stores. We're looking to make sure that if you go to any store, just like McDonald's, if you go to any, McDonald's in America, the Big Mac tastes the same.
Mhm.
So that's the same thing. We want to make sure that our service and the quality of product that we put out is the same regardless of where you go.
I think that's a really great structure. Promoting from within, and the people that are coming in at an entry level position, they have this idea that there is opportunity for growth and they can move up in the company. It's not like, oh, I'm just starting in the mailroom and I'm never gonna move up and this is where I'm gonna be stuck. And there's just no motivation. So I think the business structure that you have, obviously it's working. And I think it's a really great opportunity for people to move up into a management and future owners. So I think what you're doing is, I think if more corporations did that, like what you're doing, I think they'd have a lot more loyal people than just job hopping from, company to company. I get this a lot too. Guys say they want to become entrepreneurs because they see the fancy car, they see the nice watches, they see, entrepreneurs flying private. What really is the reality? Because this is like, I've been an entrepreneur for more than 25 years. You've been in your business for, you said more than 15 years. You've had your, yeah, right. But you also, had this entrepreneur spirit as when you were younger. That is not reality what most of these guys see. Why don't you tell our listeners what the true reality is of being an entrepreneur?
Flying private, and doing these things can be, the actual reality, but that's my reality today. That's not the reality of how I got here.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, if somebody looks at it, I probably take, I don't know, probably 20 trips out the country a year, at least once to twice a month, somewhere. But that was not my reality when I started. And what people see is they see everything that you have now. They see, the nice cars, the house, the watches, the trips, and all that, and they want those things. So they want to be in the position you're in, but they don't see what it took for you to get to that position. And the reason why is because the struggle, the hustle, and the grind is not as marketable as the end result.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were putting on there when you were, worth negative 200,000, your net worth was negative 200,000, and you're just hustling, grinding on your way up to success, no one's following your page. No one is paying attention to that. If you put the hustling, if you now have made it and you have the lifestyle, like the best content, business content is lifestyle content.
Yeah.
And, that's the content where you're, on the jet, you're buying the new car, people like to see those things. But if you had the content where you're, fielding 20 phone calls, and you're, doing all those things, no one cares to watch or see those things. Even for my content personally, the content that is my best content gets the fewest amount of engagement. So it's like, if I'm like yesterday posted about, and I have guys that manage my social media. So, I film once every, couple months, and then they kind of clip it up and we'll post it for the next, 2 months or whatever. But like, yesterday was one about franchising and about the Quiznos saga, whatever. That's an amazing post. That's amazing content, and giving examples and things that any person who's interested in business would want to know about. Engagement very low. If I go post about going to buy a Maybach, engagement very high. Probably 10 times as many views, 40 times as many comments, all that is a ton of shares and reshares and all that, because that's what sells more than, the actual meat and bones of what business is. So, I've said this previously, but there's a study that showed that over 52% of Gen Z, yeah, Gen Z, that generation, which is like 25 and younger, believe that they're going to be millionaires by the age of 25. Um, when the actual reality is it's only going to be like 0.01% will actually be millionaires by the age of 25. Belief is number one, that you need to be able to achieve anything. So that's good that they have the belief, but they don't have the work to back it up. So
Not this generation.
no,
Not the guys that are graduating school. They do not have the work ethic
no,
that I put in,
no, no,
25
no.
years ago, and
No,
you.
and I hate to be because your generation, which is the generation before mine, I'm a millennial. Your generation, said the same thing about us, and at the time we were like, oh, because millennials were shit on a lot, and and then now we're in that generation. We're looking back at the new generation. We're like, man, these guys suck, and so it's like, but the thing, every generation has its pros and cons. And I think the pro for this generation coming up is that they won't tolerate bullshit. Like they very much are just like, we're the reason why wages have gone up so much is because they're like, well, we'd rather just not work, right?
Yeah, yeah,
That's a good and a bad thing. But at least they're getting what they consider that they're worth, right? But then at the same time, the other bad part about the generation is the same exact thing, which is that they're willing just not to work at all. Like they would just rather just not work. So we have all-time low unemployment, but the economy, on every metric that you scale the economy from every president that we've had, the economy is actually doing really well. But if you go to actual day-to-day living, any person you ask out there, they're going to say the economy sucks. Right? But the reason why the metrics are skewed, and they're not skewed, like it's not like the government skewed the metrics to make themselves look good. It's just the way that we've always done the metrics. It made sense, and it no longer makes sense with this generation included, because unemployment goes by people seeking work, right?
Yes.
So unemployment's at an all-time low, but there's a lot of people not seeking work.
Correct.
So because these people are just don't want to work, it looks like unemployment's really low, but the actual true unemployment, which is people who just don't work, right, is high.
Yeah.
Because these people are not seeking work. And if these people are not seeking work, then there's less money flowing through the economy, which means that, the restaurants are making less money, the clubs are making less money, the people that work there are spending less money at the tanning salon and spending less money at Walmart, and
It's a
all
trickle down effect.
the trickle down effect, yes. So money flows, and the amount of money that's flowing is less than what we're really real estate wise. We're going into really kind of a scary time, a great time for us who own, a scary time for people who are just starting, because we're getting into um, a permanent renter society where people can't afford. It's like real estate in Toronto is like ridiculous, right? So you're
Yeah,
getting
I do real estate too, and I'm telling you, the average. I don't know what it's like in Dallas. Like I see on the Instagram, I show my wife. I go, honey, look what 600,000 gets us in Dallas. And
yeah,
like
no, yeah,
600,000 gets you not even a garage. Like the average price of a home in Toronto is 1.5 million.
yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
stupid.
yeah. No, that's crazy. So even for Dallas prices are, the house I'm in right now was actually a flip, and it sat on the market for like 2 months. I decided just to go ahead and refi and move in. This house probably 5 years ago is a $400,000 house. It's over a million. So it's obviously the places that you're at, but this is like North Dallas, which is like really nice.
Mhm.
And the houses are very middle class homes, but are now worth over $1 million to 2 million. I have one that I close on in a week. That's a flip, and it's 1.25 million is what they're paying for it, and bought the house for 700,000. So and that house, the reason why that person sold it for 700,000 is they bought it for like 300,000, 15 years ago or 10 years ago, whatever. So that just tells you it's just the area, right? Because it
Yeah.
comps out. So things even in Dallas are getting ridiculous, but ridiculous is all relative, right?
Yeah.
Because Toronto, California, Dallas prices are cheap, right? But it's all relative. You go to Arkansas, you can find this same house right here for $400,000, 350,000. So it just depends on where you're at. But either way, I mean, the wages also follow. Wages in Toronto are higher than the wages in Dallas. Wages in California are higher than the wages in Dallas. The wages in Dallas are higher than the wages in Arkansas. So we're getting into where people are getting into a permanent renter society where you can't afford, because the people who are buying that house that closing on in a week, they're putting $400,000 down on the house. Who has $400,000 to go buy a house, nowadays?
Not many people.
Exactly. So, and even if you go to a cheaper house that's, $500,000 house, more than likely you still need 25,000, 30,000. Those people, most people don't have 25, $30,000 saved up. They're,
Well, here you got to put 20%. Like, I mean, listen, if you're going to be buying a home, we have a couple different laws. If you're buying, if you're putting less than 20% down, that home has to be under $1 million because it has to get insured by the bank, right? So if it's over $1 million, you got to put 20%. Nowadays, there's not a lot of people that are sitting with $200K in their bank account or even in their investments. So it's
exactly, and that's my point. So we're getting to a permanent renter society.
Yeah.
So for investors, it's great. For normal person, it's really bad. But that's kind of just where we're at and where we're getting to.
I know you got to go. You got a flight to catch. I just want to ask another question or two. What mindset, what did it take for you to scale from one location to 70 location? And what's going to be the mindset for you to go to 250 locations in 4 years?
More than anything else, honestly, just belief. So like if you see it and you believe it and you put the work in, anything's possible. So that's really the only answer.
I know you're really big on goal setting. Tell us, how do you set your goals?
Yeah. So the way I set my goals, I set 5, 3, and 1 year goals. Anything past 5 years to me, you're just procrastinating. A 5 year goal is a big overarching goal. So a year ago, the 5 year goal was 250 locations. So I'm 4 years left in that goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then a year ago, a personal goal was to get a jet, right, in the next 5 years, and that will have both of these goals will be achieved. And then the 3 year goal, more of a mid range. Okay, what is almost like a middle point of achieving those goals, right? And then the 1 year goal is like, okay, well, what can I get done this year? And those are the goals that I really list out every single year. So it's like, what am I ticking off? Like that's personal and professional. What am I ticking off that are the goals that I have to achieve? And I stick to those goals. So I'm really big on focus. So it's like, if something is not within my goals, then I'm not going to do it. I don't care how good the opportunity is. If you came to me right now and said, hey, I got these 10 homes in Toronto and it's going to be $250,000 for all 10, but we know that we can flip it and we're going to make 2.5 million. We're going to 10x our money, and we know for 100% to sell. I wouldn't do it, because it doesn't matter how good the opportunity is. I already have goals that I have, they're already set. And I would just say, hey, that's an amazing opportunity. Let me know if that opportunity is there at the end of the year, and I'll add it to my goals for next year, and I'll get that done. But I stay very focused on whatever it is my goal is. And so it's a singular focus on the things I need to get done and making sure I achieve those goals. And I try to achieve them, within 6 months of the year, and then finish up, kind of clean up what needs to be cleaned up. And sometimes if, it's a couple of years ago, I realized, hey, maybe my goals were too easy because I accomplished it by like June of the year. Last year was the first year that I did not accomplish all my goals within that calendar year. So I had to bump some of them. I'm going to achieve them, but I didn't achieve them within that calendar year, which means that I made good goals, because if you achieve all your goals, then your goals weren't good enough.
You got to set bigger goals.
Exactly.
I always say, you know what, and that's a good point. You said you achieved most of your goals, halfway through the year. It means your goals weren't big enough. Absolutely. They weren't scary enough. And so I've always been of a belief system that if you aim for the eagle, you bag the pheasant, and you'll never eat crow again.
I like that.
Aim high. If you don't get there, at least you're close there. You may not have hit the eagle, but you're somewhere there, but you're not down here.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? I like that.
Yeah. How can people follow you?
So yeah, so sweatpant underscore millionaire on TikTok, Instagram, and I believe Facebook as well. But yeah, that's it.
Years ago, you had a mentor. Are you doing any mentoring for people that are looking to become entrepreneurs?
Just started. So I believe it's so new that I'm not even sure exactly what the website is. But if they go to my Instagram, there's a free checklist, and that kind of gets you like kind of in the funnel.
Yeah.
But but yeah, so so I have a course on commercial real estate, also just like a free one on delegation, and then one on GCing, so becoming your own general contractor. And then we also have like a mastermind where, all these people can kind of go into the community with other people. So, there's so many people over the last year that are like, "Hey, will you please mentor me? Please mentor me." And I was like, "Hey, some people I took on, I'm never charged for mentorship ever." But
Mhm.
there's such a outcry that is kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, well, let me offer something, put something together that has so much value.
Yeah.
Uh, because for me, I make so much money doing what I'm doing that I've always
It's kind of
actually
giving back, right? Kind of more of a
yeah,
giving
yeah.
back.
I've always looked negatively on the coaching and the mentorship stuff because a lot of those people make more money on their coaching and mentorship than they do on the actual craft that they're coaching and mentoring about. But a couple of my friends were like, "Hey, you should really do this," and obviously, it makes sense. And if I'm taking my time, then I have a team that's creating the content and managing everything that they have to get paid as well. So.
If you didn't catch it, it's sweatpant underscore millionaire. Please follow him on Instagram because this guy's got some really good content. He talks a lot about becoming an entrepreneur, what he's done in his business. He talks a lot about the real estate side. We didn't get a chance to touch on the real estate, but maybe that's another opportunity for you to come back on the show and
Yeah,
talk about the real
absolutely.
estate because you're really big on the commercial side. You're big. You just started doing some of your own GC work. And you're big on the residential side, and this show talks about real estate too. So maybe there's an opportunity we can have a discussion around that. So guys, please go follow sweatpant underscore millionaire. Thank you so much for your time. I know you got a jet. Guys, don't forget to subscribe, and if you like this show, share it with others. Anyway, that's all for today. So take care of your wealth and your health.